This recording will be uploaded to our ASCE YouTube channel, which you can find a link to on our website. That is asce.osu.edu. There's a link there to our past meeting archive where you can find all of these recorded general body meetings and some of our info sessions. Without further ado, welcome to our fourth and final spring semester 2021 ASCE general body meeting. Excited to have you all here, so let's get right into it. Bam, classic national registration slide. Got to hit all of you with it right at the beginning. We got a little twist here at the end though, so get ready. ASCE is a global organization. It's not just me sitting here at my computer talking to you all at your computers at home at The Ohio State University. There are multiple layers of this organization on top of us that are working to support us during and after graduation in your professional career and beyond. So in order to access that, I would encourage you to register nationally. It's a quick process that gets you a lot of benefits. And like I promised last time and forgot to update the bullet point, at our next meeting, we'd like to walk everyone through the registration process live. And this is our next meeting, so don't be confused. There's no fifth meeting. It's just a clerical error on my part. But I'm going to fulfill my promise and show you guys how this works. It's real quick. So I'm jumping out. We can all see this tab, right? I didn't lock it into the presentation. Great. Okay. So I just went ahead and searched ASCE National Registration on Bing for some reason. Go ahead and click Join ASCE. It is the big blue button in the center. Click Join now. And you can see here, society dues are $245 annually. You are saving on that by being a student. You don't have to do any of this. So I'm going to go ahead and sign up pretending that I am our student chapter. So OSU sc@gmail.com. And if you do have an ASCE account already, it'll say, hey, you're actually in our thing. Oh, and we do. So instead of this, I should have prepped a little more. I'm going to go ahead and use my email. Don't worry. And feel free to email me if you want to chat. I don't mind. So it asks you for a bunch of personal information, which is, necessary. You're signing up for a national registration, but I'm going to go ahead and say ASCE student. And our address, and I've prepped in advance, is Hitchcock Hall. So we're going to go ahead and say 2070 Neal Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, the wonderful city that we all call home. I don't think it's actually that. That's my 43210. We're going to delete this at the end. It doesn't have to be that accurate anymore. Or anyway, I'll go ahead and make a sneaky little password here that you guys can't see. Hopefully I nailed that. Nice. Okay, so make sure to tick this box here that you want to be a student. This is for if you are a licensed professional. So click student membership, next. And then wait for your internet to catch up. It did this earlier as well. Huh, strange. Well, if we can't get past this point, I'll promise you there wasn't that much after here. Yeah, maybe it just, it decided it didn't want someone named ASCE student. Maybe it detected that I was not playing by the rules here. But I can tell you what comes next. You click student membership. It brings you to the next screen, this membership details page, where it basically looks like you're buying a membership for free. We were only one step away because Make a Bigger Impact is just them asking you to sign up for some stuff, which you can say yes or no to. But it would have taken us to this next screen where it would have said, sign up for an ASCE national membership, free. And you're also able to choose one of the ASCE disciplines. The one that I'm in is the Transportation Institute, but there's also construction and all sorts of the disciplines. One of those institute memberships is free with this student sign up. And there's like 6 or 7 of them to pick from. And then you would have clicked checkout and you would have had your account and everything's done. But unfortunately, I can't get past this step. So a valiant effort. I think for time's sake, we're going to move back to the presentation, but that's how quick it is. In the time I've told you about what would happen, it would have been done much faster than that. So we'll jump back in here. Cool. ASCE t-shirts are still a thing. The last sale date possibly for the semester is going to be this Friday, from 11:30 to noon. I've included those 2 photos that I've been putting in our t-shirt emails of where I might park. There's 2 locations near Hitchcock Hall. Sometimes Campus Park comes along and like looms over me threateningly, and I have to, drive away real quick in case they're going to try to give me a ticket, and I move to the other location. So check both. Hopefully it's not too far of a walk if you're on foot. It takes me about 5 minutes to drive from here to here. Surprise me, you got to go all the way around, but I do it for you guys. So if you're interested in buying an ASCE t-shirt, they're $5. The logo that we have on the t-shirt is in the top right corner. Consider coming out. I hosted a few of these other pickup days. I only got a couple people. So if that happens this Friday, we may have to wait until fall semester to really get things going. So if you want one, come visit me. And that's my car on the right, my 2009 Honda Civic. So you know what to look for. And I'll be inside it, all my t-shirts. Okay, I told you updates real quick, because that's all I've got. I'm going to pass things off to our guest speakers who are here representing not only EMH&T in the case of Evan, but also the university with Ryan and Matt. And they're all here on behalf of Engineers Without Borders. So take it away, guys.
Great. Thanks so much for having us, Daniel. Definitely go pick up your t-shirts. I'm not getting paid to say that. It definitely helps him out a lot. I'm all too familiar with trying to hand those out. So without further ado, I'll get started with our presentation. Does everything look okay for you guys?
Great. Yeah, it looks great.
Okay. So like Daniel said, the 3 of us will be representing Engineers Without Borders. We'll kind of talk about engineering service work and how you can do that as a student or at the professional level. So before we get too far into that, I'll introduce myself as well as everyone else on the presentation. So my name is Ryan Cartwright. I'm a chemical engineering student. I'm a senior, and I'm also the outgoing president of the EWB OSU student chapter.
And then my name is Matt Parsons. I'm a 3rd-year chemical engineering student. I do think I know a few people on the call, so that's exciting to see like connections to College of Engineering coming through. And I'm the treasurer this year of the chapter, and I'll be the president next year.
And then my name is Evan Salyers. I am a recent graduate of the Ohio State University, class of 17. I work for EMH&T as a commercial development engineer, moving towards a PE, but I don't have it quite yet. And I am the president of the Central Ohio Professional Chapter.
Awesome. So before we get into everything, just to define the EWB mission, kind of like Daniel talked about the ASCE chapter, it's a national organization. There are many layers to it. There's not really just the Ohio State chapter, as you can see with Evan, on the Central Ohio Professional Chapter. But no matter who you go to and who you ask about it, their mission is always going to be to bring sustainable solutions to communities in need. And if you're paying a lot of attention, you'll see that the sustainable is bolded, and you might be asking, is this a cue to the next slide? Which, yes, it is. So it's really important for EWB to define not only what a sustainable solution is, but actually put it into practice. So the way that we do put this into practice is to have a 5+ year commitment. A lot of times with other service orgs, you'll have everything that you can do within like 1 year is everything that you can actually implement. But the additional like 4 years is everything important that comes with understanding the culture, understanding the actual community's needs, and actually like going through and developing solutions for that community based on their perspective and not just what you see from outside. That also means partnering with an NGO, which is a non-governmental organization partnership. So this is someone obviously outside of the government, within the actual location that you're working with. For us, that is the Women's Initiative Cambia. And on top of that, we'll work with a native contractor. For us, that is Waterpoint, which I'll talk about both coming up. And then something really important with doing actual sustainable work is enacting maintenance and contingency plans. The biggest way to make a system that's going to fail is to just not have any maintenance or contingency, because if you're not projecting into what's going to go wrong, obviously something's going to happen that will go wrong. So planning into the future and having contingency plans is something that's really important that is kind of underrepresented in service work. And then technical training is something really important too. So this is involves actual training of the equipment and the gear that'll be in place in the community to the actual community members. So giving that actual like hands-on training for a lot of the equipment that they'll be dealing with. And one more step before getting into actual service work is redefining the actual clarifications, because there's a lot of different views about service work and how it really should be implemented. So a couple of key points is the people that we help are not helpless. Obviously, there's a perspective from the US on developing countries that they really need our help, which really isn't the case a lot of times. Just because they have a different situation, it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to go in and do some sort of work for them, because a lot of times they're more times than not, they're better off without any additional help, especially if they're not asking for it. Additionally, we're not the owners of the project. So after the time comes that we implement and we're no longer in contact with the community very regularly, they're the ones who are actually overseeing the project and maintaining it and making sure that everything is still working out. So along those lines, you have to make sure that you're not really the expert of it. In terms of the actual ownership of the project and expertise in the area of the culture, it's going to be the people that are native to the area. A lot of times we'll have the expertise in the actual technical solution, but it really comes down to the community and how they're engaging with the project and its success in the long term. So with that out of the way, we can kind of talk more about the fun stuff, which is, this first slide is going to be our international project for the student chapter. This, like I mentioned, we have a 5-year partnership with the Women's Initiative Gambia with the founder Aissatou Cisse right here. Both of these pictures are from the latest implementation trip that we've made. So Nijau is in the western part of Africa in the Gambia, if you're unfamiliar. Both of these pictures, like I mentioned, are from December of 2019. And you have some of our travel team, along with our responsible engineer in charge, and some of the community members that we work with. Here's some actual implementation that's going on. There's just some digging for the borehole profile that we've made. And so to kind of summarize the actual project, it's a water supply irrigation system that we'll be implementing. Some of the things that we've completed is a 5,000 liter tank with one borehole, one pump that is used to actually pump water into the system. That tank sits on a 1.5 meter water tower. It's powered by one solar panel and it has 3 distributed taps for water placement. And this was used for their garden. They initially came to us because they had an 8-month dry season, which was really difficult for creating crops. Obviously, if you have more months out of the year with a dry season than being able to actually grow. So coming up, we'll be doing our remote implementation in May. Obviously, we can't do any actual travel with COVID restrictions. So we'll be doing some of this with our in-country contractor, which is WaterPoint, which I mentioned earlier. So what we've designed is to implement an additional 5,000 liter tank, which sits on a 6 meter tall water tower with 6 additional taps. So it's really just increasing the water supply to the garden. And a lot of what this is doing is enabling them to create a sustainable production of crops for the community. But it's important to note that not all of the work is happening globally. A lot of sustainability, humanitarian development work is done within our own backyard, which is the Columbus area. So most the latest project that we've had was in the fall of 2020, before obviously everyone else is wearing masks in these pictures. But this was a bat house project that we had where a local park in the Columbus area reached out to us to take a bat house, which was damaged. As you can see, here's the concrete with a pole. At the end of this, here's a bat house for actual bats to take home in, which is really interesting. It's something that no one really knew about. There's no really expertise with engineering that is about bat houses. So there's some like research work that was done. But the entire project here was rebuilding this pole with the house on the end of it and putting that back into the concrete for bats that were in the local Columbus area. Recently, we did a tree nursery project here. You can see a lot of holes being dug up. This was with the Green Columbus in Columbus, obviously. So here we're building a tree nursery for an additional 1,000 trees to be grown every year. So there's some underground piping being done, some tarping being set, some engineering here with the poles and cementing, and then rerouting a pipe or a pump to get water to all the tree nursery. Here's another local project that's still ongoing. That was actually just finalized last weekend. So this is a fencing project with the CHA animal shelter. This is obviously a work in progress. There's nothing stopping any animal from traveling between this little blocks. But this was to create like a rearrangeable movable fences for the animal shelter so that they can bring animals outside, which is pretty cool to also just be a part of projects like that. Very locally, that's not super hardcore engineering. It's just kind of service work in general. And then finally here, this is one of our longer ongoing local projects, which is a bilateral stimulation device. This is obviously not the product that we are making. We're still in process of creating our final design. But the project scope here is going to be creating EMDR bilateral stimulation tappers for the OSU CCS department and for STEM schools to create actual kits to create these tappers. So I obviously just jam-packed a lot of words that I didn't even know about a year ago before taking on this project. But what this is a device that's used in tactile therapy, where you hold both of these ends of the device and they vibrate at different frequencies. And it's proven in therapeutic sessions to lower anxiety and depression levels. So that's another project that is going to be ongoing for our local projects, which is something that's been really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, and I'll take over for a little bit here. So this big quote you can see here on this slide is, "We work with communities, not for them." I think this will just reiterate a few of the points that Ryan made earlier. But like the project that we're working on was identified by the community. They like had their own existing garden, and they themselves like were working in it and identified the problem and recognized that they could use some additional like engineering expertise and like skill set to help solve their problem. So they would have applied to EWB USA, and then at some point around 5 years ago, our chapter here at Ohio State applied for the project and then was partnered up on it, and we've been working with them for the last 5 years. But just some of a couple more things that Ryan had said, but just super important parts of our project is that like the community is like the expert. They live their like own life every day, so they're experts on their own like situation. They know what resources are available to them. They know like how much things cost in their own local area. They know how to like grow things in the garden. They know about like what water sources they have. So they do have a lot of like expertise, and some of the things that they might not just be aware of are like some of the possibilities of different engineering solutions that exist. Might not have just been exposed to different ideas, different concepts. So us as like students, just like being familiar with like different like technical accomplishments and solutions that have been like made and applied in different situations. We have a lot of like ability to just help connect them and help identify potential solutions that they can like choose to go forward with. And then like the community also plays a part in providing like service to help complete the project, and they fund 5% of the project, which may not sound like a lot, but it's enough to ensure that they have the capability to continue to like fund maintenance expenses and stuff. So really throughout the whole process, they're very involved. When we do travel, we stay like just directly in the community with them, and they provide us with meals and like lodging, travel to and from like the airport and the capital to like their village and community. So there is like a lot of assistance and like dependence. It's certainly not like Ryan said, they're not helpless by any means. So this is just highlight some of the work that we do in our chapter. So the chart on the left like just captures like how much of the work that we do at Ohio State, like a lot of our like promotional material, a lot of the stories you hear and that kind of stuff will be from traveling and stuff. You won't see a picture of us just sitting in the classroom like cranking out all the work and MATLAB code and documentation. But this chart like points out like a lot of the work happens like before we even travel, just like planning projects, designing, verification, documentation. A lot of that happens before we travel, and then while we're in country and like implementing the project is such a small part. And then also included in like the EWB, just like model as a whole is like an assessment and evaluation trip after the implementation. So this is completed to just ensure that everything is like working as intended before the project is completely handed off to the community. And at that point, it's like they have full ownership and like would not be in contact with us other than just like keeping in touch as like friends and like partners, but like not for the purposes of the project. And then on the right, I know it's hard to see, but just captures like a variety of a lot of different things we've done. So there's like MATLAB simulations of the water usage in the system, different designs for like tank stands, how they'll be built. I think those are actually like notes from one of our travel team members while they were in the country. And then making like contracts. So this is an important part of our project. We work with contractors, the community, the NGO, ourselves. There's like a lot of different stakeholders that have their own important roles. So like we will write different like contracts and like agreements that just like specify who will be doing what jobs and managing like the project. And then Ryan mentioned this earlier, like operations and maintenance manual. So like you could implement like the greatest engineering solution, but you drop it, leave, move on, like that's like guaranteed to fail. That there's like no chance going forward. So this is one of the steps we take to ensure the sustainability of our projects. So this manual will be translated into their local languages, and we've also worked with the community to establish like a savings plan as part of this to ensure that they have like the funds and are like aware of different expenses that they'll have to maintain the project. And then we also have like educational component. So actually in a couple days we are having a agricultural outreach person from the Senegal visit Zhao and host workshops for the community to just further their knowledge and ability to grow different crops and a larger variety of crops, because they're currently have like expertise in growing like a few like staple crops, but they want to grow like a larger variety. So just that's like educational component is just as important as like the engineering work that we do. And then at the bottom, there's logos for Women's Initiative Gambia, which is our NGO that we work with. And then Waterpoint Gambia is our contractor for a lot of our, or for all of our like projects that we've done with the community garden. And then this highlights some of the accomplishments we have recently made as an organization. But last summer we worked together to fundraise for like Black Lives Matter movements and just being kind of involved with some of these other like larger societal social problems. I think that Engineers Without Borders does a pretty good job of being like involved and kind of understanding like the societal effects of engineering. Like no matter where you are in the world as an engineer, you'll have a lot of power just by your title. You'll control a lot of wealth. Like the joke that like, oh, like pick out any item that's not like tree or grass or something, and like an engineer probably played some part in like building, designing it. Engineers have a lot of power, and I think a lot of like courses and coursework don't really do justice to like understanding like our effects that we have in society. So I think one of like a good takeaway from the EWB projects and work is understanding more of like the effects of what this engineering project that we're currently doing in JAL, like the impact it will have on the community, and like that may seem like pretty like clear, like, oh yeah, now they'll have access to a lot more water, they can grow more crops. Like that seems simple, but going deeper than that, understanding how that will change wealth distribution, because now women will have like a means to grow excess crops, and they could like sell them, and then they could become more independent and access to other opportunities. So there's so many ripple effects that these projects have that are important to understanding and learning about. And then the Diversity Inclusion Enhancement Award was awarded to us from the College of Engineering last year for, I think our organization just does a good job of involving a variety of different like majors and just across like all demographics, like male, female, race, ethnicity, across a lot of those different like fields. We just have like a wide range of people, and then working with a lot of different projects, as you saw in Columbus and around the world. And then we have a video here from our most recent travel trip in December 2019. So yeah, I think that video highlighted our like project in Jalwell. You saw a lot of different elements of it and different like skills we applied. And then just like mention a couple more things here about our project. We were awarded a Community Engagement Award, which was one of 5 projects selected throughout the whole university. So we were pretty proud of that accomplishment. And this just highlights like how involved we are with our partnership, and like how it is like a true partnership. It's not a one-way relationship by any means. And we've also been selected for multiple outstanding student organization awards for our work. And then if I were to highlight a couple more things for the specific audience, and that is that our the project you've seen a lot in this presentation is in the Gambia, and it's like a community garden project. But we will be wrapping this project up over the next academic year, and we're are currently applying to new projects, new international projects, and we will have selected one by the start of next semester. And some of the ones that we have applied to are like civil engineering, like constructing schools in Ecuador. So tailor it to your audience. I think there's a lot of opportunities there to work on like a project like that. And then I think regardless of the project we're doing and like your discipline or specific interest, I think there's a lot of like gains to be made just in terms of intercultural communication, understanding the societal effects of engineering, project management, just like experience of like working on these projects, and just having like the knowledge of like actually implementing and doing some of the skills and concepts you're learning in the classroom. But yeah, I'll pass it on to Evan now to talk about some of the work that the professional chapter is doing.
Yeah, thanks guys. So for the rest of the time, which is going to be fairly short, my goal is just to clarify the differences between the student chapter and the professional chapter. And the place I want to start is just that everything that they've just described about the student chapter is entirely true about the professional chapter in Central Ohio, and true of just about every chapter in the Engineers Without Borders greater organization. One of the most interesting things about this organization is there's just a shared commitment to the ideals that Ryan and Matt have both laid out for you guys, and a shared method of partnering with communities, partnering with the people, giving them responsibilities, and understanding that they are humans just as alongside of us, and building really great relationships. Just some background on me. I was not involved with the student chapter at Ohio State, and honestly, I regret it. But I was involved with the Global Capstone Project, which those of you who are probably in your third or fourth year might be familiar with. That at the time was a water project in Tanzania. And I mean, it was a life-changing event. I haven't been involved with that project since. I mean, obviously I've moved on to different things, but If nothing else, I highly encourage those of you listening to just consider a humanitarian project similar to Engineers Without Borders, just for the case that it'll open your eyes to parts of the world you've never seen. You'll understand that it's much wider than the borders of the United States. And even though there might be a difference in money, there is a ton of similarity between the places that you'll only discover once you go and see it. Not only that, you'll learn that there's an opportunity for you to take the things that you've learned in classes. And similar to how people advertise for internships, like you need to get this internship so you know it's like to actually behave like an engineer. One of the coolest things that happened to me was I went on this trip and I learned that I could use the things that I learned in classes and act like a civil engineer and do it to improve somebody else's life. And not from like a saviorist mentality, but from a like, these are the skills I have. This is how I can be useful. And this is how I can be a part of a community greater than Columbus, Ohio. I'm telling you, it really, really is a marvelous, marvelous thing. So about the Columbus chapter specifically, we did a school project in a village called Las Victorias in San Cristobal, Guatemala. And what you're seeing here is I think Matt mentioned the post-implementation aspect. So they finished the school building, and I was able to be a part of the team that went down in late 2019 to do the flag raising ceremony for the new school. And then similar on the right is our current project, which is a small kitchen that we are annexing onto the building. Kind of, it's a little bit separate, just so that they have a place to cook food for the kids, which is government mandated. Which, as you can see, required a pretty hefty retaining wall and some site grading that is all very civil engineering focused. So if you guys are interested in those things at all, this is definitely the place to be. If you want to go to the next slide, Matt or Ryan, whichever's in control. But the cool thing about this project from a professional chapter standpoint is that, just like Ryan said, we partner with projects for the long term. We're not in and out real quick and done in a year. In fact, this project, we applied for this project, I believe, in 2014 or 15, did an assessment trip for the first time in 2016, and here we are in 2001, still wrapping up the project. However, one of the cool things that happens from a professional standpoint is that, unlike Ryan's situation where he's heading out the door because he's graduating, from a professional standpoint, once you're in it, as long as you don't like move or get tired, I guess, and leave, you can be in the project from beginning to end. So the pictures that you're seeing here, for example, are the existing school building, which was a brick building that somebody came along and provided them a while back, which just wasn't enough. They needed more, along with a lean-to that they used to house that little bit of extra kids that they need. Not pictured is their additional lean-to that they use for a kitchen, which is just coals over iron grates that I swear could catch on fire at any given moment. I don't know how they even use this thing. And then a courtyard area. So we ended up buying the land immediately behind that building, setting it all back and building a giant retaining wall. Was the first stage of our project, which you'll see on the picture on the right. So that was the first stage of our trip, and then of our project. And then from there, we came back and we built the schoolhouse. Now we are again building the kitchen. And then we are hoping to wrap up with the sanitary project to be determined, hopefully within the next year, which is, again, goes to show that we are partnering with this community to give them something that is a whole package. We don't want to just show up, throw something at them, and then say good enough and then disappear. And again, like Ryan mentioned, there's a lot of ownership on their part. They're the ones coming through and doing a lot of the unskilled labor. Through their contract, they have to foot a portion of the funds. It is not a large portion of the funds, but it's enough for them to have skin in the game, so to speak. And similarly, like whenever we go down, we make sure that there is a cultural impact here. And it's entirely led by them. Like the flag raising ceremony you saw on the last slide was their idea. It was they bought the decorations, they hired the bands, they gave us food. Like it is a big deal to them to have this because their kids have a place to learn and to grow. and it is a big deal for us to be a part of it. So if you want to go to the last slide. And the last thing that is an advantage of being in a professional chapter is that you get a partner with people. And what I mean by this is, again, a lot of the things that's already been said. If you're partnering with the community, you're getting your hands dirty right in the middle of them. You get to know who they are. But the other aspect of this is that you get to know people who you're working alongside of. So the bottom half of the pictures are good pictures as a community, but the top half are pictures of people that are on our side. Like there's a picture of Amanda, my project lead, and Ron and Aaron and myself when we were down in there. And then again, us cooking dinner. Nestor, our contractor, is on the right. He's somebody we've worked with for years. He does all our construction management down in country. And it is a great place to, one, network. I know that's a hot topic for especially engineers, but also just to build friendships with people who are like-minded, who share similar passions, who want to serve on the same kind of projects. And as far as the professional chapter is concerned, the bulk of our work is civil and the bulk of our volunteers are civil. So there is a great opportunity to get to know people from organizations, even within Columbus, without Columbus. I was teasing Danny and Daniel beforehand because they were getting internships with my competitors, but like they're competitors that I have a relationship with, mostly because of other volunteers who work for those companies while being in Engineers Without Borders. And this is not true just of the Columbus chapter either. As some of you graduate and move on to different parts of your life, there are professional chapters all over the country. And if you feel like, man, I'm missing out, I lost on this opportunity to be a part of a cool school organization. Well, good news, you're just in time to be a part of a great professional organization. And if you have questions about them, I know I would be more than happy to answer them. Daniel has my email. He could send it to you and we could have a conversation. It could just be emails back and forth. But there are plenty of opportunities to get involved. There's structural work, there's water work, sanitation, there's reports, and there's works for people who are good at planning events. There's fundraising and those kind of things for people who aren't even truly engineering inclined. Like there are numerous different opportunities for you to get involved, to have an impact beyond the potentially narrow sphere of influence you might have. And I think that's just the most powerful thing that Engineers Without Borders can offer. Yeah, you can go ahead. So if anybody has any questions, now would be the time. I know we're pretty close, but.
I just had one regarding the student chapter. Sorry, Dan.
I was just going to ask if there were any questions one more time. So go ahead, Danny.
Yeah. So you said that, or so like you guys showed that the projects are like 5 years for the student chapter, but 75% isn't pre-work. So how exactly is it, like the first 3 years you guys only do pre-work, and then the last 2 years of the project you're actually visiting it like once a year, or do you take a trip once a year every year for the 5 years?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So to kind of break that down a little bit, that pie chart, it isn't necessarily like sequential. It's just that like most of the work we do is done like while we're actually in Columbus. But to answer your question about traveling as well, except for like these COVID conditions, there really would be a trip every year, potentially even twice a year, where there are different like strategies going into each trip. So for example, our last trip was an implementation trip. Before that, there's an assessment. And then after everything is done, there's an evaluation. So there's a little bit of a difference in scope between each trip, but the tendency is once every year, I would say.
Yeah, and then just to add briefly, like the model is like assessment. So those trips would happen like pretty quickly after like accepting and starting the project. And the whole purpose of that trip is to just go and listen to the community, learn about the situation, kind of start building that relationship with them. And then following the assessment trip would be the implementation trip. And that's like doing the engineering work, implementing the solution. And then there's the monitoring and evaluation phase, which is going and making sure everything is working as intended before we like leave the project in the hands of the community.
And this model is true of Columbus Chapter 2. So, like, for example, I was talking about the schoolhouse we built and then the kitchen we built separately. So, in between those two phases, we did an implementation trip. Well, it was more of a monitoring trip for the school after it was done to make sure they had done it right. And simultaneously, we were doing assessment for the kitchen, where we were gathering information for the next phase. And similarly, we try to take a trip once a year, which I meant to mention this earlier. It's a different game whenever you're a professional, because on the one hand you have a lot more money to travel, but you also have a little bit less time you have to balance with vacation and those kind of things. So I would recommend doing it now while you can, and you don't have to stress about those kind of things. But there is definitely still opportunities to travel from a professional standpoint.
So how many countries have you traveled to?
Yeah. So our chapter has had, I think, a few projects on our history, but we started OSU in 2009, and then we were partners with the project with the Central Ohio Professional Chapter for a year, and then our first project that we had independently, we did the assessment trip, and it was in the Dominican Republic, and the project was not like scoped out very well, and we decided that it was not like realistic, like it wasn't like an engineering problem that needed to be solved. I think there's more like just societal like conflict and other elements that like we had no role in like working on as like students and engineers. And then we would have started working on the Gambia project in 2014. So in terms of EWB, we would have traveled to the Dominican Republic and the Gambia, and then we will be starting a new project next semester, and we'll have opportunities to travel as soon as like COVID situations allow.
Okay. Do you guys have the chance to stop by Senegal? Just next to Gambia, Gambia is and Senegal, they're not it's not too far. So have you guys planned to have some projects going on in Senegal?
We have not stopped there by Senegal on our previous trips, to my knowledge, and don't think there's many ongoing Engineers Without Borders projects in the Senegal, or at least there's not any like new ones. Like while we're looking for new projects to apply to, there are none in the Senegal. But I know I mentioned like we're having agricultural workshops that will be ongoing like very soon, like starting at the end of this week, and our partner for that is from the Senegal, and he's traveling from Senegal to the Gambia to like host a workshop. So we do have some like partnerships in Senegal.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and I really like the fact that you guys have international projects in Africa, which is really interesting. Yeah, so. Yep.
It is worth mentioning that if you have specific interests, either in a country or in a specific project, especially in the virtual age, there is room. This one would require a little bit more direction from myself or Matt or Ryan, but there is room to partner with other projects who are working with those communities. Like part of the strength of Engineers Without Borders is we have chapters all over the place, working all over the place. So like, for example, our chapter president, who's very good with concrete, helped a project out that was undergoing in Thailand, completely separate from ours, but they needed help. So our project lead stepped in. And similarly, it's not that you have to be an expert in order to get this deal, but if there's something that you are particularly interested in, we could get you connected with different chapters and see if there's some way we could fit you in.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any more questions for our presenters? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm going to throw it back over to this then to close us out. First off, I'd like to say thank you guys. The work that you guys do is so selfless, and I can tell that you're really passionate about it. So thank you for coming out to talk to us about it tonight. I know I personally want to learn more about Engineers Without Borders, and you certainly fulfilled that wish of mine. So thank you. And then also thank you to not only our officers, not all of whom are pictured here. This is from the last semester, but to our audience, our general body members. All of you have been really great this whole semester and this whole year with how crazy things have been. Thanks for sticking with us in ASCE. I've actually featured a few of my favorite audience members here, so thanks guys so much for coming out. That's a bad joke, by the way. It's just, that's the default photo, so in case any of you didn't get what I was doing there. Okay, that's all I have for you guys tonight and for this semester. So thank you so much for your attention this evening, and I will see you next time in the fall, or on Friday if you're coming to get a t-shirt. All right, take care, guys.
Thanks so much, Dan and Danny. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one.